After weeks of speculation, it's finally official. Bandido is officially All Elite. Tony Khan has confirmed his signing with the company after his appearance last night on AEW Rampage. Got details on his signing with the company. Thunder Rosa is still currently out of action, but could she be returning soon? That's the case if you believe what she says. We've got a trios match that's been announced for Dynamite this week, featuring the return of an AEW star from injury. A steel cage match has been made official for Full Gear next weekend, and the House of Black's return continues to be teased. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And let's start off talking about Bandido. The signing is official. As I mentioned, this has been one that's been speculated for weeks, isn't it? I feel like it was a really long time ago that Bandido had that match against Chris Jericho in the main event of Dynamite for the Ring of Honor World Championship. He was offered a contract on the spot, and then there was interest from WWE. Does he go to AEW? He was leaning towards AEW. He'd given a verbal commitment to AEW. It had been reported he had signed with AEW. Then it was reported, wow, not so fast. Maybe he hasn't signed just yet, but now it's official. Bandido is All Elite. Now, ever since its conception in 2019, All Elite Wrestling has continued to add to its stacked roster. Former WWE stars like Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, current AEW World Champion Jon Moxley have made their way to AEW, as well as up-and-coming wrestlers from other promotions and independent wrestling territories from around the world, such as Ricky Starks, Brody King, Roosh, and AEW president and CEO and head of creative Tony Khan recently took to social media to announce the company's latest major signing. Former Ring of Honor World Champion Bandido is now officially All Elite. Bandido has signed with AEW after working for companies such as AAA, PWG, Impact Wrestling, in addition to Ring of Honor. He made his first appearance in All Elite Wrestling on the September 28 episode of AEW Dynamite when he unsuccessfully challenged Ring of Honor World Champion The Ocho, Chris Jericho, for the title. Bandido didn't appear, though, on AEW again until last night's episode of Rampage, where he defeated Roosh to move on to the semi-finals of AEW's World Championship Eliminator Tournament. Bandido and Roosh, of course, have a storied history, as Bandido defeated La Faction... I always butcher this pronunciation. Faction Ingobernable, absolutely wrong, for the Ring of Honor World Championship in 2021. Bandido main evented the first Ring of Honor pay-per-view under Tony Khan, Supercard of Honor, this past April, losing to then Ring of Honor World Champion Jonathan Gresham. He also appeared in the main event of the inaugural All In pay-per-view, of course, back in 2018, as he, Rey Mysterio, and Rey Fenix lost to the Golden Elite, that being the Young Bucks and Kota Ibushi, in a six-man tag team match. So Bandido is officially All Elite. As I mentioned, it wasn't really a secret by any stretch. It was something that had been heavily reported on for the last about 6 weeks or so, something like that. It had been heavily reported on, and there had been, as I mentioned, maybe some erroneous reporting. Maybe that's not the right word, but certainly there had been some presumptions and jumping the gun slightly when it came to his signing. I think he had only really officially put pen to paper, as it were, maybe last week. I think it was Meltzer in The Observer, it might have been PW Insider actually, that first confirmed or went on to the record saying, yep, he's now put pen to paper. That was maybe a week or so ago. But prior to that, there had been reports out there. I think Sean Ross Sapp said Bandido is going to be All Elite. Then there was some pushback of, well, he hasn't put pen to paper just yet. And in Meltzer's reporting this week, the reason given as to why he decided to choose AEW over WWE, because make no mistake, there was strong interest from WWE. And, think about it, it would make sense why there was strong interest from WWE. One, because Bandido is obviously a fantastic talent, no doubt about that. And Triple H is certainly in signing mode at the moment after a year, 18 months or so of WWE's roster being not depleted, but certainly we've seen a lot of stars be released. We've seen a lot of stars be removed from the company, and the budget being cut and the fat being trimmed, as it were. Triple H is looking to bring people back to WWE, and again, in my opinion, that's because I think he is going to split up the rosters. I think he is going to do a hard brand split. I think that's going to happen after WrestleMania next year. I think we are going to get a draft similar to 2002, and then a brand separation that's very similar to what we saw in sort of 2003 to sort of 2007 in WWE. That's my opinion. That's not reporting. Nevertheless, that's why Triple H was interested. And I think also, AEW is still a competitor to WWE, whilst they might not be doing the numbers on television that WWE are doing, and probably that will never, ever be the case. But at the same time, they're still a competitor, and any chance you can get to, land a bit of a haymaker on the jaw of your competition, you want to do that. So to have someone be in the main event of Dynamite, put up a great showing, and then the next time you see them on national television is in an opposition and a rival company, that would be a win for WWE. That wasn't WWE's, of course, that wasn't Triple H's sole reason for wanting to bring in Bandido, but I'm sure that played a part. But ultimately, Bandido decided to join AEW over WWE for really family reasons. It was reported by Meltzer that obviously if Bandido were to sign with WWE, he would most likely have to relocate to Florida. His partner did not want to move out of Mexico. He's got a small child. Initially, of course, his road dates wouldn't be too hectic, being in Orlando, being based in NXT in the developmental brand. But once he got called up to the main roster, which I'm sure there would be a situation where it could be fast-tracked or something of that nature, once that would be the case, there would be, times where he would be on the road 5 days out of the week, and he didn't want to spend that time away from his child. And frankly, again, that is something that AEW does have to offer over WWE still, is that lighter schedule. Of course, it doesn't jive with Jeff Jarrett coming in at the moment to sort of flesh out what live events are going to look like next year. We are going to be seeing AEW expanding. We don't know if it's going to be into the house show market just yet. What we do know certainly is that they're looking to expand shows and do overseas tours. They've already teased or announced that there's going to be an announcement regarding a UK tour, most likely next week. We're also probably going to see tours of the likes of India, maybe Japan, maybe other territories too. So that would lead to more dates on the road, but we do know that Bandido has signed a contract where he's selected to a specific number of dates. However, those dates are more than most people would work for AEW in a year at the moment. So it's not as if AEW have kind of backed themselves into a corner with this one. So nevertheless, massive signing for AEW, and fingers crossed they use them properly and not like some other signings where they kind of fizzle out and disappear very quickly. But I don't think that's going to be the case with this one. But I'm not going to use the word game changer, because I know social media loves to put every signing that AEW does. It goes, it's a game changer. Or they go, this was going to be a game changer. And yes, it's a good signing. That is what that is. Thunder Rosa is still out of action through injury, and there's been lots of speculation about when and if she's going to be back competing inside of the squared circle. AEW Women's World Champion Thunder Rosa could be returning very soon. In an Instagram video from Rosa's induction to the Paso de la Fama in Tijuana, the champion made clear she's on the road to return. She said, quote, "Shout out to all the AEW Women's Division," she said. "You guys are doing great, but I'm getting better." Rosa's ambiguity was followed by a more definitive, "I'm coming back soon." She's been sidelined since late August due to a back injury. She had been reportedly working hurt for quite a while, stretching back to before her actually winning the championship. The status of her injury has been subject to a lot of backstage speculation in the wake of reported drama between herself and Britt Baker and others behind it, with all this behind-the-scenes issues reportedly with Rosa. She has taken the time to step up and dispel the rumors about her and her injury recently on SiriusXM's Busted Open Radio. Before stepping away from the ring due to her injury, of course, she was scheduled to defend her title against Toni Storm at the All Out pay-per-view. The match was changed into a four-way match to crown an interim Women's World Champion. Storm recently confessed her aversion to being labelled the interim World Champion. She's not happy with that. When Rosa does return, she is set to clash with the interim champion to crown an undisputed AEW Women's World Champion. While Storm is the current interim champion, she is set to defend her title against longtime friend turned rival Jamie Hayter at the Full Gear pay-per-view next weekend. It is odd, and I understand that maybe Thunder Rosa just doesn't have a definitive timeline. She doesn't know when she's going to be back. I mean, earlier this week it was, I'm aiming for January. Now it was, I'm coming back soon. It's January soon. I guess technically it kind of is. But at the same time, she said, my doctors don't want to say when I'm going to be back. And again, there is this ambiguity going on backstage. And don't get me wrong, I am not suggesting that she's faking an injury or anything like that. But what I am saying is that this is a really complex and convoluted situation that, frankly, when the interim world championship thing was established with CM Punk first in the summer, that to me kind of made sense because CM Punk was going to be out for a month 6 weeks, something like that. Well, okay, that's a short enough time period to have an interim world champion, especially between pay-per-views, how they do it in AEW. But in reality now, you'd have had Thunder Rosa missing 2 pay-per-views. She missed All Out, obviously, because that was right when she got injured, but she's also going to miss Full Gear. Is she going to be back for AEW Revolution at the end of February, beginning of March? I mean, who knows? We don't have a definitive time point at this point in time. And if reports are to be believed, she was going to drop the championship to Toni Storm at All Out anyway. And, you know, there was some belief or some perception that maybe she could have worked through the match. She could have worked through the match if she really wanted to, considering she'd worked through this injury this whole time. So when she comes back, my assumption is, anyway, that whenever she does return, she is going to drop the championship. Her first match back, if it's this undisputed championship match, Toni Storm will win that match because that was always the plan. So I can understand the aversion or the eye rolling, as it were, to people going, all right, sure, you're injured. But only Thunder Rosa and her doctors truly know the extent of her injuries. And frankly, it's only really Thunder Rosa because the doctors certainly could point out, you know, an injury that she has, but she will know in her heart of hearts if she could or couldn't go. She's been going to rehab ever since the injury. She's been posting these updates on YouTube and social media. So the hope is certainly that she comes back soon because it's good for the AEW Women's Division, and it's also good to have an actual world champion that's there every single week, not an interim world champion, regardless of who that may or may not be. A match has been announced for Dynamite next week, and Top Flight is back. Top Flight is back once again. They're ready to take off once again, and the destination, hopefully for them, is Championship Gold. After suffering another injury in April, Darius Martin, who's had terrible luck when it comes to injuries, makes his return to All Elite Wrestling on the November 16th edition of Dynamite next week. The high-flying competitor from Minnesota will reunite with his brother Dante Martin and AR Fox to challenge Death Triangle for the AEW Trios Championships. Again, Martin has had terrible luck when it comes to injuries. He suffered a torn ACL in February of 2021 and spent roughly a year on the shelf. He made his comeback in the Casino Tag Team Battle Royale on the March 2nd, 2022 episode of Dynamite, but after only 7 matches, he suffered another undisclosed leg injury that he said had nothing to do with wrestling. It was later learned that the Dynamic performer was involved in a car accident, and that actually kept him out of action for 8 months. Again, just terrible, terrible luck. Joining Martins is the whole Foxing Show, who is one of the hottest free agents in professional wrestling right now. He is the head trainer for WWA4 Wrestling School in Atlanta, has some experience in trios competition, having won the Lucha Underground Trios Championships alongside Willie Mack and Killshot, who may be familiar to you because he's now known as Swerve Strickland in AEW. Since then, Fox has made a few appearances in AEW Dark and Dark Elevation. He even picked up a win over Serpentico during his most recent outing. While the Snake Man isn't on the same level as Death Triangle's Pac, Penta Alzera Miedo and Rey Fenix, Fox hopes to continue his winning ways of Top Flight and make an impact in AEW. Of course, they're not going to win the Trios Championships, but it comes at a time that certainly the former and inaugural AEW World Trios Champions, the Elite, are set to return to AEW. We don't have an official update as to when. They're going to be at Full Gear. We don't know if their return is going to be announced ahead of time or they're just going to show up. We don't know what the situation is going to be. Maybe we have a situation this coming Wednesday where Death Triangle retains and then they're confronted by the Elite and the match is made official for Full Gear, and then the Elite win the titles at Full Gear because I think that's the plan, and then they're just going to pick up where they left off, essentially, when it comes to the Trios Championships. I think that is the idea, certainly, when it comes to those Trios Championships, but certainly when it comes to Top Flight and particularly Darius Martin, fantastic to see him back, and just again, fingers crossed he can stay healthy because he's been really, really, really unfortunate when it comes to injuries over the last couple of years or so. Speaking of Full Gear, the match has been made official. We're getting a steel cage match at the Prudential Center in New Jersey. Jungle Boy Jack Perry will square off against Luchasaurus inside of a steel cage. During this past Friday's Rampage, Perry came face to face with Luchasaurus and his mentor Christian Cage in a verbal altercation. Cage expressed his frustrations with Perry costing Luchasaurus his match against Orange Cassidy and Rey Fenix for the All-Atlantic Championship last week. "The two of you have cost me everything," Perry said in response to Cage's comments. "You, Luchasaurus, wasted 3 years of my life that I'll never get back. Every single time that I've had the chance to fight back and get some revenge, the two of you have found a way to stack all the odds against me, and it's worked every single time. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take that power away from you. I'm going to stack all of the odds against myself." Cage portrayed betrayed Perry after Perry and Luchasaurus lost the AEW World Tag Team Championships to the Young Bucks at the Road Rager edition of Dynamite back in June. Luchasaurus joined Cage shortly after, but once again stood by Perry after Fyter Fest Week 2. The reunion, though, was short-lived, though, as Luchasaurus turned his back on Perry for good at All Out in September to help Cage and Perry in their match. So we're going to get a steel cage match, and I don't know if it will be, but I kind of hope this is the end for this feud, because it did have a lot of promise, you know, like as I mentioned, when Cage did turn on Jack Perry, and you felt like, okay, this is going to be the moment that Jungle Boy's going to win, and it's going to really elevate him. But I guess because of the injury to Christian Cage, and then the convoluted way that Luchasaurus turned heel, but then he didn't turn heel, and then he did turn heel, and it would have been better if it could have been done if it would have been executed better, I think. But I just don't know. This feud at one point had a lot of momentum. Christian Cage talking smack to Jungle Boy's family, taking shots, and then Jungle Boy had his promo where he cussed out Christian Cage and spoke about his wife and getting divorced and all that kind of stuff. And it was good. It worked. And then it just feels like a lot of things, I guess this feud is kind of reflective of All Elite Wrestling over the last however many months, that it's just lost any and all interest. It's just lost so much steam and heat. And now it's just a case of something that has been bubbling over since early spring, really, or since the spring heading into the summer. We're now in November heading into the holiday season, and it's like, oh, this is still going. We're not moving on. We've got to move on to something different. And again, I think this feud is kind of reflective of what's going on in AEW right now, and that's, things are cold. Things are cold, and things need to be shaken up and freshed up, and hopefully that'll be the case coming out of what appears to be at the moment a very cold Full Gear pay-per-view. Finally, the House of Black. Yes, their return continues to be teased, as it was last night on AEW Rampage. Another teaser vignette seemingly in advance of their return. A popular stable featured on Rampage last night. Another mysterious vignette aired on AEW Rampage, teasing the return of a stable that has been off of AEW television since All Out. In an expanded tease, the House of Black seems to be headed back to AEW action. The clip can be seen on social media as well as during the broadcast. And I spoke about the Elite on their way back to AEW, and suddenly the trio's picture looks quite bright once again. And I think if the Elite defeat Death Triangle at All Out, certainly they could have a program of the House of Black. That's a lot of fun. There are certainly still a lot of trios in AEW, and there's certainly matches to be had there. And there obviously has been so much speculation about Malachi Black, his future, Buddy Matthews, his future, Brody King. There is still something there in that House of Black faction that I think that can be money for AEW. I think there's still something there when it comes to Malachi Black. People forget, like when Malachi Black came to AEW, it was off the back of not being on television for months for WWE. He came back and then was released the following week. It was frankly bizarre. But the viewpoint of Malachi Black when he came in was, this is a guy that could be the AEW World Champion. And he's been a million miles off of that. He's only really been competing in these trios matches or tag team matches. And that's because he had a really bad back injury that he thought at one point he would have to retire. But people have to remember and think back to the Aleister Black that was in NXT, that people were saying he was going to be this generation's version of The Undertaker. He was a supernatural gimmick that was over, and he was having fantastic matches, and his style was different, and his entrance was great. And that's still all the same in AEW. His entrance is still great. His style is still great. So at a time that AEW has lost top talent in people like CM Punk and the product is cold, they need to look to their roster and they need to think, okay, what can we do with the people we have already? Instead of bringing in free agents, we've got someone like a Malachi Black. We can turn him into something. That there is something there. He's fantastic. He can cut promos. He's got the faction around him. We can do something with him. We can put him into a main event picture. We can build these guys back up. It shouldn't just be they're cold, right, I've got to bring in another free agent. No, it should be, I've got a big roster here full of talent that at the moment they're cold. Now it's on us as a company and as a creative entity and as a booker in Tony Khan's perspective to find something to make it work with the talent, whether that's Malachi Black, whether that's Brody King, whether that's Buddy Matthews, whether that's whoever. If anything, if you've learned anything from this CM Punk situation and the Young Bucks situation and the Hangman Page situation and everything that's happened this year, it's that the answer isn't always we've got to bring new people in. Of course, you're always looking to sign people and free agents come up and you always want to improve your company. And it is important to refresh your roster, but you shouldn't want to refresh your roster at the expense of the talent you already have, especially when you haven't used them. If the well's dry, when it comes to what you could do with a lot of talent on the roster, then that's fair enough. Then you need something different. And if someone like a Bryan Danielson or an Adam Cole or whoever, Claudio Castagnoli comes available, of course you bring them in. But at the same time, not at the expense of the talent you have that you haven't used properly just yet. And that's, a perfect example is someone like Malachi Black. So I still think there's a lot they can and should achieve with Malachi Black. And I've got my fingers crossed. I'm a big Malachi Black fan, and it's going to be interesting, seemingly, to see what they do with them, because it would be really frustrating to me if after all of these teases, the House of Black come back and they're just the same as they were before. They don't do all that much. They occasionally appear on Rampage. You want to see something more. But there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.